Happy Halloween, everyone. Me and the Takeoff Productions have produced 8 fantastic horror stories for you to enjoy in this fine night. I hope you guys enjoy, and until next time, I'll see you all later. Yes.
I was an active user of the deep web, often using it in my free time. I, along with some of my college friends in computer science, would browse through. We would find all sorts of interesting data. It's amazing the amount of information that is on the deep web, and how much people aren't able to access on the surface web like Google or Bing. I don't advise anyone go onto the deep web without some form of protection. I was using a virtual machine with a strong VPN. I have no important data on my virtual engine, and I tried my best to clean my trail as I surfed. I had used the deep web for over a year, and didn't really find anything disturbing, mostly because I didn't try to. It was easy to forget how many criminals hide on this dark side of the web when you mostly browse forums. But one morning, I jumped in my car and attempted to start it up, only for it to refuse to turn on. I had to call an Uber to get to my college campus on time. It's always incredibly frustrating when your car doesn't work. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, trying to pay my rent and affording groceries with a part-time job, and I really wanted my car to work because I didn't want to Uber everywhere for several months. So I decided I could attempt to fix it myself. I hopped online and went to this one deep website a friend had shared with me for automotives. I typed out my question into the site's chat, and a user who went by The Great Engineer 91 replied in full detail of what could be the issue. I was grateful and was able to fix my car by replacing a starter motor. He was a great help, but after I thanked him, he demanded payment for his services. I refused to provide him a payment through bitcoins and stated that I didn't have the money. Plus, it was a public chat on the site. The man argued and stated it was in the site rules. I decided to back out of the site, thinking that he wouldn't be able to track me. I'd gotten what I needed, and that was that. Only for the following morning, I got a text. It said,
Sophia, no VPN or virtual machine will stop me. I want my payment.
I have no idea how he got my name and my phone number, but I decided to just block him. Later that evening, I got another text.
Sophia, do not make me angry.
There was an image attached of my car outside the apartment I had stayed at. At this point, I realized that I was fully compromised. This man knew where I lived, my name, my phone number, and likely so much more. It's hopeless when a person knows pretty much all of your information and you have no idea what he is going to do. I felt cornered with no escape. I know he will know if I call the cops. It only takes a brief moment to break in, shoot me, and leave the scene before an officer shows up. And even if they show up and they move me for protection, it will be really easy for him to track me. I had to accept his demands. I had lost this game of hacking. I replied, I'm sorry, I don't want to make you upset. I'll pay you, but I don't have much to give. How much do you want?
I no longer want money. I would like you as a guest.
He posted a link in the text to a deep website.
Go on it. I think you will be honored. But do not keep me waiting.
I knew this had danger written all over it. I didn't want to go anywhere or be a part of anything. But I knew I didn't have much of a choice now. So I logged on and noticed the background of my personal computer was changed to, I know you are there. Don't keep me waiting. A reminder that I'm completely compromised and he had access to all of my files, and likely all of my socials. I quickly logged onto the virtual machine and I typed the link into the browser. It was obvious it was a red room. The chat was going crazy. A man wearing a leather mask walks in front of the camera.
Welcome, Sophia.
He spoke, and soon after, the chat with over 2,000 views all welcomed me.
This is Monkey Central, where we perform all the wild fantasies that are shamed on the surface. Our community is like a good family. We are excited to have you as a guest.
I didn't want to type anything in the chat. I knew I was on death's row here, and I needed to find some way to get out of this mess.
I hope you enjoy today's show, and we look forward to seeing you in action next time.
Behind him, he has a man tied to an office chair. The host then grabbed pliers and was going for the poor man's teeth. The sight of the man in agony and the sound of his horrific screams melted into my head. I hurried to shut down my computer. I couldn't bear it anymore. His screams still echoed in my head. I don't want to die like that. I soon got a text.
Why did you leave? You were very disrespectful, you know that? You should be grateful to be on our show.
I took the battery out of my phone as soon as I got it. I didn't have a game plan for this. I had nowhere to go, and I didn't want to get my friends involved, making them victims too. Eventually I calmed down. I hoped that this was all an elaborate prank or bluff. But I knew I had nowhere to go. I would be found. So I grabbed the kitchen knife and kept it close to me. I made sure the front door was locked, and I went to bed. Sleep was impossible. The poor man was already missing an eye, a hand, and had barbed wire around his neck. The image of him was glued tightly in my head. His screams were so agonizing that it is still hunting me now as I lay in bed gripping a knife under my pillow. I know that man likely made a mistake similar to me. I only hope now he isn't suffering any longer. Being killed from a gunshot wound would be a mercy if that was my fate. I heard knocking at the front door. It must have been past midnight at this point. The knock came in 3 bursts, with a pause, and after a few seconds, another 3 bursts. I slowly got out of bed with my knife and crept up to the door.
Sophia, open the door.
I heard a man speak. I knew it was him. It had to be.
I know where your friends live. I know where your parents are. I know everything about you. Do not make me angry.
I didn't say anything back, staying put behind the door. Suddenly, the door handle slowly turned and the door crept open. I stood silently as I was squeezed between the door and the corner of the hall. I knew I just had to wait him out and make a run for my car. He took steps forward, down the hall, towards the living room. I watched him from a crack behind the open door. He was wearing all black with a leather mask, holding a gun in his right hand and a syringe in his left. I watched as he crept slowly towards the bedroom area and entered my room. I decided that this would be the perfect time to slip out the front door. Carefully moving the door to make as little sound as possible, I stepped out barefoot and ran as fast as I could. I also had the sudden realization that I forgot my keys, but turning back clearly wasn't an option, and I could hear my front door slam far behind me and the intense pounding of the man's boots dashing after me. As I ran down the hall, I noticed another man in a hoodie with his hands full trying to open his door. The sight alone gave me an overwhelming sense of hope. I nailed it in my mind that I was going to die, and luck came to save the day with another stranger. "Help me!" I screamed at the man. My scream spooked him as he dropped his keys on the ground to stare at me, running towards him with a knife. He looked at me like he was about to die. I couldn't afford for him to turn away. It was my only chance. "Oh God, please open the door! He's gonna kill me!" I pleaded. The man dropped all of his bags and stood still. It took him an additional few seconds for him to grab the keys, the amount of time it took me to reach him. The pounding of the man's boots could be heard down the hall.
Sophia, come back here!
He cried out, but was only the sound of demise for me. "Quickly, open the door!" I begged him, clinging to him like a baby duckling. He quickly opened the door and threw me inside and slammed it shut behind him. The man started kicking the door, screaming my name repeatedly.
Sophia! Sophia!
The man who saved me quickly dialed 911, but as soon as he started to speak to the operator, the demon outside emptied a clip through the door. One of the rounds had penetrated the guy's left leg, and he began to cry in agony, but was still trying to get help.
"Oh God, please! Just send someone! Please hurry!"
I couldn't help but feel like it was my fault, that it was me being foolish, and me who was causing this guy so much pain. A few seconds went by, and nothing was happening at the front door. That sick man must have left, knowing the cops were on their way. I sat with this guy and tried to help his wound. I felt like I owed him so much for what I just put him through, and for saving my life. When the cops and paramedics arrived, they didn't find the man who had likely killed several people. They didn't even know who it could possibly be. 2 weeks later, the guy who saved me recovered from the gunshot wound. He was still really startled by the event. We both were. Though, it turns out, we both go to the same campus, and we are now really close friends. As for the hellspawn of a man, it's been an entire month, and there have been no leads on him. I guess he really is good at covering his tracks. Though I'm living somewhere different now, I know he already knows where I am, and is just waiting for the right time to strike. It won't be over until one of us falls.
I think I've gone crazy. Maybe I hit my head wrong and forgot about it. But I will never walk a night again. I will never forget what happened last night. My roommate, Rally, stares at me in complete concern as I jump away from my window. I've been thoroughly scarred to the point I haven't even left my room at all today. It was just about 30 hours ago. I was celebrating Rally's birthday, throwing jokes and enjoying some chocolate cake. I haven't eaten. I've been here, not even willing to open the door for my best friend. I hate myself for it. I have lost it. I don't even know how to explain myself anymore. What I witnessed doesn't make sense to me. Last night, I was simply running to the gas station to grab some milk to go with the cake. Everything was fine until on my way back I spotted this woman down the sidewalk wearing an 18th century dress. I found it odd. Not something people would normally wear, and there wasn't really anything upper class in the area. My eyes were drawn in. She stood still in the middle of the sidewalk, facing the street. But her head was turned, with her eyes locked on mine. It felt overwhelmingly awkward as I was approaching her. I decided to say something to break the tension. Hello? I blurted out with a stupid smile on my face. She stood there and began to frown at me like I had offended her. Still feeling awkward, I spoke again. What's the occasion? She looked frustrated, and her teeth were showing. I was confused. I felt like I did something awful, but I was only trying to be friendly. Her back suddenly stumped to her side, towards me, as if she lacked a spine. I froze in place. Her eyes were still locked on mine. Terrible, she said in a voice that sounded like she couldn't breathe. I took a step back. She turned her whole body to face me, with her back still slumped over. The right side of her body looked deformed, and her right arm looked double the length as her left, with long, razor-sharp nails. Terrible, she spoke again, dumbfounded, but yet in shock. I dropped the carton of milk on the ground. I ran to my left, across the street, towards the apartment complex. I could hear her footsteps behind me, but I was too afraid to look back. As soon as I got back, I slammed the door shut behind me. I found a note from Raleigh saying to come join him at the bar. He likely wouldn't be back for about an hour. Soon after entering, I could hear the nails of the girl scraping across the door. All that went through my mind was what she said. Terrible. And that monstrous look. I know she wants me dead. I don't know if she is a ghost or if she is real. It didn't take long for her to break in, and I immediately locked myself in my room. I didn't hear things being knocked over or things being searched through, though a part of me knows she may still be in the apartment. I was terrified. I had this intense feeling that I was gonna die. I sat in the corner of my room and prayed for what seemed like hours. Riley came home and asked why the door was open. I didn't want to say a word. I remained there, confused, hopeless, and horrified. I didn't know if she was still inside or not. I didn't want to open my door, not even for Riley. I didn't even speak back. I can't risk anything, I told myself. But Riley got a key and opened my door anyway. I sat in the corner of my room, crying and holding a gun. The expression on Riley's face felt like I was shot. Riley insisted that I keep the door open, but I still refused to leave. I know I look crazy, and might as well be. I wanted to go back to normal. I wanted to regain my courage, but it didn't help as I looked out the window. She stood there, across the street, staring at me dead in the eye, nails on her right hand, dripping blood.
I was an anxious guy. Always on edge. Always worried. Never liked to be around people. I like to play games quite a bit. Just gaming all night long. Every now and then my anxiety would kick in after gaming. Just hearing strange noises in the house, even though I knew I was alone. Let me just fill you in on a part of my setup. Play FPS games a ton, so my headset has surround sound built in. If someone were behind me, I would hear it, and I guess, one night, well, we'll get to that part soon. It was a Friday night. Just got off from playing Call of Duty. I have a lot of fun playing games with my online friends. It keeps my anxiety at bay. Takes my mind off things, you know? I decided to just lay back in my chair, relax a bit, take a break from playing games. Just close my eyes and thump. My eyes opened, and I looked around the dimly lit living room. Nothing was there. It must have just been in my head from gaming. I got a little hungry, so I went to go get a snack. As I walked to the kitchen, I swore I heard something behind me with each step, almost as if my steps were echoing. So I turned around. Nothing. I just brushed it off. Sure, I felt uneasy, but it's nothing out of the ordinary for me. Living alone can be a little nerve-wracking every now and then, but it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. I went ahead and made myself a sandwich. It was just some ham and cheese with a little ketchup on it. I should really go grocery shopping soon. It was strange though. Throughout me eating my sandwich, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching me. Even though this happens every night, it felt different tonight. I can't quite explain it. Just that urge to turn around because something is looking over my shoulder constantly. I must be tired is all. I went ahead and walked to the living room again to turn off the lights in my PC. As I was walking, I heard those steps again, but it was more subtle. I did a little glance with the corner of my eye, and I swear, there was someone there. Someone I've never seen before. So I turned completely around, and the next thing you know, it was gone. I turned off the lights and ran. With each step, I heard the echoing footsteps. And then they weren't echoing. The pattern had changed. Someone or something was there, right behind me. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could, even skipping a few steps with each step I took. And then I tripped. I panicked and turned around. At the bottom of the stairs was this black shadow creature with white glowing eyes. Its body was like mist, just vapor coming off of it. Arms were out of proportion, longer than his torso. Legs were normal, but its neck was even there. Just a floating head above his body. And then it was gone. I ran into my room and locked my door. Kept my lights on and hid in my corner, trying to calm down as my heart raced. I could hear it outside my door. The walking. The shuffling to my room door. And then silence. Tap, tap, tap. Outside my window. I glanced and there he was. On the second story of my house, staring at me. Its soulless eyes just watching me. And then his mouth opened into the shape of what I assumed was a smile. He had no teeth. Just a cut up tongue that hung out of its mouth like a snake's tongue. I cried for help and closed my eyes. Then opened them again, and he was gone. I looked around my room in panic, and there it was. Right next to me on my bed. Just staring at me. Putting its hand on my shoulder and whispered,
"You'll never be alone. I'm always here with you. I'll always be with you. My name? Call me Anxiety."
and it vanished before my eyes.
I've been a pilot for 6 years. It's quite a useful skill to have out here in Hawaii. Flying has been my favorite thing to do in my free time. I'm considered to be a pro and have gotten almost everywhere in the Pacific. I've flown as far as Homeland, Japan, Taiwan, Alaska, and Chile, for example. The Pacific Ocean was my home and flying was my life, but I was wrong. I was flying out on a trip to Los Angeles with my buddy Falco. What was meant to be a short vacation trip turned into a nightmare. The engine had suddenly shut down and moments later was in a nosedive towards the ocean. Falco was panicking. I grabbed the parachutes and an emergency kit. Falco was desperately trying to get the plane back up, but just as he gave up, he quickly grabbed the parachute I was handing him. We jumped out. We must have been over 15,000 feet in the air. The dark blue water was racing closer and closer. We pulled our parachutes just seconds before jumping out. Falco was flying more and more away from me to my right. I tried to call out to him. "Falco!" I yelled. I didn't get a response back. I kept trying to yell at him. "Falco!" In a minute's time, he was gone. Falco was a person who doesn't handle stressful situations well. I knew the moment he was no longer visible, he would never be seen again. The water was cold upon landing. I had to act fast. I quickly took off the parachute, my shoes, and reached for the emergency kit. I opened the kit and I realized it was a bag of problems. The water cans were empty, there wasn't food, and the first aid kit wasn't waterproof and the salty ocean water had contaminated it. The only thing useful was a flare gun with a single shot. I leave everything else to sink. Everywhere I looked was miles and miles of ocean. No land in sight at all. The ocean was miles deep as well, and I didn't know what else was here with me. I knew I couldn't panic. Every ounce of energy was needed if there was any chance of survival. We were miles north of Hawaii with no land close by. Getting to land would be a dream as likely as being the first man on Venus. Not that the chances of my survivability would be much different if I was there. I laid on my back so I would float. I picked a direction and started to swim backward to conserve as much energy as possible. It was the only option I had. The sun felt like a 1,000-pound weight and it vaporized me. I was floating for hours. The amount of salt water that was going down my throat made me incredibly dehydrated. As I was craving for the sun to go away all day, I soon realized that it was the last thing I wanted. As the sun setted, it became pitch black dark. The only light was the dim moonlight. I could see my hands, or anything for that matter, that wasn't a few feet away from my face. I was cold, dehydrated, tired, and now blind. Me and Falco should have been in Los Angeles, sightseeing, having drinks at a bar. I had that plane for over 5 years. I couldn't have predicted there would be an engine failure. Like crashing into the ocean was destiny. If it was, why did Falco have to be a part of it? Why couldn't it just be me? As I floated and thought things couldn't get any worse, I get attacked from beneath the water. I had floated into a school of jellyfish and they were stinging me all over my back and limbs. The steams were making welts and bleeding sores, which the salt water intensified the pain. I only had one option lacking vision, and that was to swim backwards in one direction. I battled through the jellyfish and they stung me everywhere. I was in incredible pain, though grateful to be out of that school. As the night carried on and the agony I was in raged on, I began to think being eaten by a shark or some sea creature would be a much better and quicker death than the torture I was enduring. I had lost all senses. I only tasted salt, saw nothing, heard only the sound of waves with my ears full of water, and felt cold, thirsty, and pain. I felt incredibly exhausted. I couldn't really paddle that much even if I wanted. It was hopeless. Nothing I could do but float in agony. It was the greatest sight of my entire life. I saw a cargo ship sailing in the distance. The lights on the ship were a beacon of life. I must have been in the trading lanes, though I understood that the chances of a ship seeing me were slim. I was like a speck in the ocean. All I had was a flare gun that my right hand gripped intensely on with a single shot. If they don't see me, I will likely be floating for several more hours until another ship comes by. But even then, it would be impossible for them to see me. Though it was still nighttime, I had to do it. The darkness should make the flare more visible. I raised my arm up, turned off the safety, and pulled the trigger. I watched as my only tool was thrown high into the air, creating a red light in the night sky and lighting up my surroundings for a brief moment. I watched as the ship carried on, leaving me to my fate for only a searchlight to point directly at me on the ship. I was so dehydrated and weak that I couldn't yell for help. I just raised my right arm with the flare gun one last time in the air, which felt like it drained all my energy to do it again, and I blacked out. I awoke on the cargo ship. The realization if I hadn't abandoned the bag I wouldn't be alive came to me. The man on the ship who was a part of the crew of the people who saved me told me that a shark was circling me from below when they found me passed out, floating on the ocean surface. I had been lucky to float in the right direction towards the shipping lanes. My odds of surviving were like 1 in 1,000.
deep in the middle of nowhere, there lies a camp, Wanamaker Titicaca. The campsite is nearly completely surrounded by deep woods. One night, Nicholas, the camp counselor of the Wolves' Cabin, lay asleep in his bed when suddenly there was a loud growling, scraping sound that woke up Nicholas.
What was that?
Said Nicholas as he sleepily rose from his bed and blinked. Nicholas fell back to sleep. The next night, the sound happened again, but closer. Once again, Nicholas awoke and brushed it off as sound from the forest.
Must have been the forest sounds.
Third night, Nicholas awoke startled to the growling, scraping, and now crunching of leaves right outside his window. He didn't know what to think of the sound he heard, but Nicholas knew the forest couldn't make those sounds. So with dread filling the air, he looked out the window. Outside, he saw nothing that could make the sounds, but something did scare him.
Connor? Oliver.
He read from a badge. A wolf cabin camper was at the opening of the woods in nothing but his PJs. Nicholas froze, seeing the young boy casually walk into the forest. Panic was all Nicholas felt as he rushed to get his boots on and chase after the poor boy.
Connor! Come back here!
Shouted Nicholas. He ran out the door and straight into the dark woods. The crinkling of the leaves from every time he took a step echoed through the quiet woods. Many thoughts ran through his head, wondering why one of his campers was in the woods. There were so many wild animals that lived here and roam at night, so why? Lost in his thoughts, Nicholas had managed to lose sight of Oliver and the boy's footsteps.
No, I couldn't have lost him. He has to be somewhere close.
Nicholas was at a loss. He couldn't track the boy, and all he had was a flickering flashlight. Then suddenly, those noises from before happened. Growling, scraping of paws on trees, and the soft crinkling of leaves. Nicholas, in a panic, looked for the source of those sounds, but found nothing, and then silence. No sound, no growling, nothing. And then footsteps were heard in front of Nicholas. It was Connor, standing a little bit away from Nicholas. Once the man saw the boy began running again, and Nicholas chased after him. After a few minutes of non-stop running, they got to a clearing where a burned, overgrown, wooden building lay. Next to the building was a large cave opening that once looked to be used as a mining site but seemed abandoned. All of its equipment was still there. Nicholas looked in confusion at the mining site and wooden building.
What? I don't remember this area ever being here. No, I need to focus on getting Connor.
Nicholas told himself, looking around and finally spotting the young boy at the mouth of the cave. Nicholas wasted no time to rush over to the boy and reach over his shoulder. However, being up close to the boy, he took notice of the rips and bloodied parts of the boy's clothes.
Connor! Are you...
Nicholas was cut off by a loud, unnatural growl that originated from behind him. Nicholas spun around and saw two glowing yellow eyes from the tree's shadow, and Connor suddenly was standing next to the tree, head down. Nicholas, looking panicked, shouted,
Connor, get away from there!
The creature walked out of the shadow and stared down at Nicholas. The creature was 7 feet tall with a thin body, long legs, a long thin tail, yellow cat-like eyes, gray short fur covering its body, and blood-stained claws. To the creature's claws were 4 blood-red strings that connected Connor's forelimbs. Nicholas saw the creature move its hand, and Connor looked up at him. Nick wanted to throw up. Connor's face was pale, white, and covered in dried blood. His eyes were dead lifeless. Nicholas knew that Connor was dead, and this thing killed him.
Why? What are you? What do you want?
Nicholas screamed, stumbling backwards, terrified at what was happening. The creature stared at him before pouncing on Nicholas. He wasn't able to scream before everything went black. Nicholas woke up, sweating in his bed, his throat raw and his body sore. Nicholas paled when he looked down and saw he was still wearing his boots. 2 other counselors, Ben and Eliza, the Eagle cabin leader and the Deer cabin leader, walked into Nicholas's room, confused.
You okay?
Said from the doorway as Eliza walked over Nicholas's bed. Nicholas, still scared, tried to tell them what happened, but he couldn't speak.
A camper! Connor Oliver, Oh.
Shuddered before continuing.
Oh God. A camper. I lost a camper in the woods. Connor Oliver, he's dead. He's dead. I should be dead.
Ben and Eliza looked at each other, then back at Nicholas.
Nick, buddy, we don't have a camper named Connor Oliver here at Camp Wanamaker Chikikaka.
Eliza told Nicholas, being very confused and concerned.
What? Then who did I chase?
I am horrified. My best friend, Zoe, hasn't been acting like herself. I didn't think any of this would happen. She stands in the corner of her room, looking down at the floor. She's been like that for over 3 hours. She's still breathing, but I don't think it's a prank anymore. 2 days back, we were getting our Halloween spirits up, buying candy and decorations at the mall. We share an apartment with another close friend, Jordan. Jordan gets terrified of everything incredibly easy, but yet still likes the holiday. In fact, we all do. It's one of our most favorite times of the year, alongside Christmas. The three of us had so many great memories growing up with Halloween, and we often like to have a shared theme when we pick our costumes, like last year when we were all vampires. I decided to browse this one store with Zoe while Jordan was looking for some candy for our candy bowl. The place had a lot of spooky things in it when I found an Ouija board. I took it off the shelf, and Zoe looked at me with some interest. She isn't able to speak due to a medical condition that she was diagnosed with at birth, and she's not a huge fan of using sign language, so I have to read her expressions to understand what she's trying to say to me most of the time. She didn't look concerned. In fact, I would say we both wore the same expressions of interest. In the past, we have seen videos online and thought they were all fake. Why would something so dangerous be so available to the public after all? But we were interested and thought it would be a nice addition to our Halloween shopping. The three of us had a blast decorating when we got back to the apartment. We were really excited this year, with all three of us being ghosts. The whole apartment was covered in pumpkins, cobwebs, old paintings, fake bloodstains, and candles. We were really proud of ourselves. By the time we were finished, it was half an hour till midnight. Zoe grabbed the Ouija board and swayed it above her head for me and Jordan to see. Jordan looked at her with a deep concern, but I thought it would be a great way to end the night.
Zoe, are you crazy? I'm not messing with that.
Jordan whined. Oh, come on. It's just a board with a blank head. Don't be such a scaredy cat, Jordan. Jordan sighed, obviously scared, but was the type of person who would stick with me and Joey. We were a trio, after all. Zoe began to open the box and place the Ouija board on the living room table. I grabbed Jordan's wrist and playfully tugged him towards the table to play. Jordan had his usual expression of looking uneasy over something, but he wasn't going to let us play alone. The three of us did almost everything with each other. The board was perfectly placed on the table, with the blanket centered on the board. I turned out the lights and Zoe lit a few candles around the board. I came back and sat down at the table with the board and everyone. A few seconds went by and Zoe was just looking at me. Oh, right, I said. Jordan was obviously scared, and Zoe couldn't speak, so I would be the one asking the questions. I placed my hand on the plankette and Zoe and Jordan followed. The rules on the box read, never play alone or leave one person on the plankette. Don't play in a graveyard. Never burn the board. Never leave the plankette on the board. Never ask when you will die, and always say goodbye. I began to move the plankette in a circle, while Zoe and Jordan held their fingers on the piece. Are there any spirits here who wish to contact us? I asked. I stopped. Nothing had happened. We all looked at each other for a short moment before I opened my mouth again. Is anyone there? Right as I asked the question, the plankette dashed towards yes with a great force. We all jumped.
We're playing.
Jordan said, trying to confirm it was me or Zoe. Zoe just looked a startled eye. I didn't do anything, I replied. Zoe was shaking her head with concern.
This isn't funny, guys.
Jordan said, still in belief. I decided to ask another question. Who are you? The plankette violently moved to the L and began to spell out L-E. E. L-E. E. As I finished spelling, I got a huge chill down my spine. Are you a good spirit? I asked. It zipped over to the no.
Okay, I don't like this anymore, guys. Let's stop.
As soon as Jordan said that, the plankette moved. It spelled, keep playing. Jordan was shaking. His hands could barely remain still on the plankette. I could tell that me and Zoe for once were actually on the same page with Jordan. Lily, why can't we go? I asked. The blanket began to move even faster than before and spelled out, angry. I felt like I dug a grave for all of us. I wanted to stop so badly. Sorry, but we must say goodbye. I tried to move the blanket towards goodbye at the bottom of the board, but it felt incredibly heavy and stuck in place. It's not moving! Jordan and Zoe then tried to help me to no avail.
What the hell?
Jordan said, looking shocked. Zoe tugged on my sleeve with her spare hand, signaling me to ask another question. What is it that you want? I said, with a bitter tone in my voice. To all of our horror, it spelled out Z-O-E-Y. Zoe had to let go of the blanket and backed away from the board.
This is sick, dude.
Jordan said to me, still trying to believe that it was a prank. Zoe, we have to finish, and we'll never play this again, I said, trying to get her back, because I was afraid of her leaving so suddenly would be a bad thing. Zoe cautiously walks back to the board and places her hand back on the blanket. You can't have Zoe, I said back to the board. It then swiftly spelled D-I-E. It was stuck on the E just as it was before. We were unable to move it. Then the bathroom door slammed shut.
What the hell?
Jordan said, standing up from the board to look behind him. Me and Zoe stared in shock.
No way. I'm done.
Jordan said as he backed up, leaving down the hall. Jordan, wait! I said, and also stood up. Jordan still kept backing up, and then suddenly stood still, staring at me. Zoe tugged my arm. Her hand was the only one on the blanket. Oh crap, I said, trying to rush back to placing my hand on the blanket. As soon as I moved my arms towards the board, the candles went out. From the darkness, I heard objects started flying around the house. I felt Zoe's fingers slip off the blanket, and the sound of her struggling across the floor. Zoe! I cried her name.
The lights won't turn on!
Jordan yelled. The table flipped over on top of me, and suddenly the lights came on. Jordan ran up to me and got the table off of me. I laid on the ground, noticing the Ouija board was on the ceiling, with the blanket still on the E. As I sat back up, I scanned the room. Where's Zoe? I said with panic.
Oh, God!
Jordan cried. I got up and ran down the hall. I decided to search her room first. The door was stuck closed and required both me and Jordan to push open. As we entered the room, there was Zoe standing in the corner of the room, looking at the ground. Her cross on the wall above her bed was upside down. It felt evil and unsafe being in the same room as her. 3 hours passed and I was too worried to leave the room. Zoe is my best friend, and I don't know what I'd do without her. Jordan had gotten tired of waiting and decided he was tired of looking at the upside-down cross. He walked over and turned it upright. Zoe then attacked Jordan by tackling him. I then intervened and pulled her off him. Jordan's arms and face were covered in scratch marks. Soon after grabbing her, Zoe went to a deep sleep. Turns out, after some research, Lily is a demon who absolutely loathes friendships and tries to convince friends to kill each other by possessing one of them. We know Lele is still in our apartment with doors opening and slamming shut, but we're too afraid to contact her again to tell her to leave.
Bloody Mary. I laid in my bed, cold and wide awake. It was dark and early side for this particular October night. I curled my toes as I felt a shiver past me. I closed my eyes and didn't dare to open them, for I sensed someone or something else was lurking in my bedroom tonight. Sometime after the witch hour, I had drifted away into somewhat deep sleep, and just as I fell in tranquility, my throat felt parched, and so my warmth and comfort were taken away. And there I was, making my way down the old creaky staircase to get a glass of water.
I sensed a sort of shadow behind me. However, I didn't have the courage to turn around. After quenching my thirst, I felt a shiver once again. Within moments, I had made my way back into my bedroom, shut the door, and pulled the blankets over my head to try and forget the fears I was sensing, stronger and stronger by the minute. All remained silent until something had pulled away the blankets, and there I lay, frozen in horror as I stared at the bloodiest looking figure. She reeked of blood and had clawed my legs when pulling the blanket. My bed felt different. It didn't feel comfortable anymore. It wasn't cozy nor felt like my own to say the least. For now, I had some sort of demonic woman glaring back at me while dripping an extravagating amount of blood over my bed, which was once my only private soothing comfort in this wretched home. The demon pounced on me and held a strong grip around my neck. I dared not to say a word and only felt myself turning paler and closer to passing out. I began to feel her claws stab through my neck and eventually felt my own blood trickle down. Just as I thought I was surely gonna die, another figure appeared behind her, and this time with a knife. I screamed so deadly and started kicking them both, trying to push them away, but it only seemed as if they grew stronger and more hideous. The one with the knife had somehow already stabbed me several times, and the other had dragged me out my window and taken me to the woods. I was petrified and only wished to go back to a few hours ago and feel the last bit of comfort in my bed. However, I knew it would be impossible. I couldn't make it past the night with this too.
My lungs are burning. My legs feel like they're about to fall off, and my heart feels like it's gonna explode. It hurts so bad, but I can't stop running. I scream out in desperation between my painful and heavy breaths. Someone help me! Why is anyone helping me? Where the hell is everyone? Help! Nobody will answer me. Nobody will help me. I'm not even sure if there is anyone left to help me. Now that everyone... What was... Oh god, no. Stay away from me, no! I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's happening. I just want to go home, but I don't know where home is, or if I have one at all. I'm scared and confused, but yet everything feels familiar, like all the answers are in the back of my head, but I can't reach them. What the hell is even happening? I stumble out into the busy streets of a city, populated with people going about their day. They don't even notice me, wandering and stumbling about. The cars are so packed in traffic, it's like there's not even a street left. Not to mention they're not even moving, but then again, neither is anyone else. It's like they're all... Damn it, what's the word? I can't remember. But why? Why does this all feel so familiar? I notice my reflection in the window of a building in front of me. But something's not right. There's nobody in it. It's just me staring at myself, and a figure behind me in the distance, facing towards me, just standing there. I turn around, but I don't see the figure, and everyone else is still there. I look back in the reflection, and not only is the figure gone, but I can see everyone else too. I don't even know what to think about what just happened. After some more wandering, I enter the city park, and as I notice a huge fountain in the distance, it only comes back to me, just how thirsty I am. I rush over to the fountain, without any regard of how stagnant and dirty the water is, and I dunk my entire head into the fountain. As I bring my head back out of the water, I look on top of the fountain and see a gargoyle, perched on top, squirting water out of its stone mouth into the fountain, forever still, forever immobile. Something about it is making my fight or flight response go crazy. It's like my instincts are screaming at me to run and hide, but I can't tell why. It's just a statue. As I take my attention off the gargoyle, I look around at the people of the park. Even with the dozens, maybe hundreds of people populating the park, it feels like it's just me and the gargoyle, here, together, completely alone. This park, no, this city, feels so empty. I can barely even describe it. It's like nobody's here with me. But I'm the only living thing in this park, and everyone else is just fragments of my imagination. But I can feel their presence. I know they're here. I know I'm not alone. It feels like they're dead. As I look around at the crowds of people, something catches my eye in the distance. A figure in the crowd, sitting there, straight as a board, looking back at me. And as I look back at it, I start to think it's not even human. Not breathing, but alive. I was staring at the figure for so long, I didn't even notice that every man, woman, child, even animals have stopped moving. And they're staring straight at me from every direction, with their stone cold dead eyes. My heart begins to beat faster, as I start breathing in harder, as I feel the adrenaline rush throughout my veins. Just then, I feel my heart drop, as I hear the water in the fountain next to me has stopped pouring, and I can hear the dreadingly familiar sound of scraping stone. I slowly turn my head towards the source of the sound at the top of the fountain, and I see it. The gargoyle, it's gone. Everything is slowly coming back to me. I'm remembering. The people, the animals, the statues. Oh my god. As if my fear wasn't already pushed me past my breaking point, a voice in my head knocks me out of my trance, and sends the ever so familiar feeling of dread coursing through me.
What's wrong, Peter? You're standing so still you look like a statue. Don't you remember us?
My senses are screaming at me not to look, but I couldn't stop myself from turning my head. And I see it, standing there, only a few inches away from me, and I stare into its cold, stone, lifeless eyes.
Remember us?
The voice booms in my head, and at that very moment, everything comes back to me. Every single detail. My identity, my family, my life, the apocalypse, the people, the statues. I remember everything. I back away from it, shaking in fear, refusing to believe my reality. Everyone, the people, the animals, every single creature, they're all dead. They were killed by them, by the statues, turned into statues. I look around at the cruel reality I was blind to since I came here. Everywhere I looked, I see the people who populate the park. All statues, all stone, all forever immobile. Then I see them, the statues, the ones who caused this, standing between, behind, and even on top of their victims, taking all kinds of forms, from humans to demons, to even angels, staring straight at me, some even reaching towards me. I trip and fall back, and look up to see it standing over me, reaching its stone claws towards me, its huge wings blocking the dim sun. And I hear its voice in my head again.
I found you. I finally found you.
Rah! I scream in terror. I run faster than I've ever run in my life.
Don't run from me!
The voice echoes in the back of my head, but I ignore it, and I keep running like hell. But as I keep running, I hear the loud demonic screech behind me, coming straight from the statue, which only makes me run faster and harder, desperate to get away from them. But they're everywhere. My lungs are burning. My legs feel like they're about to fall off. My heart feels like it's about to explode. It hurts so bad, but I can't stop running. I scream out in desperation, between my painful and heavy breaths. Someone help me! Why is anyone helping me? Where is everybody? Help! Nobody will answer me. Nobody will help me. I'm not even sure if there's anyone left to help me. Now that everyone... What was... Oh god. No. Stay away. Stay away from me. No. I slowly open my eyes as I wake up on the ledge of a tall building. My head feels like it was hit with a brick. I look up in front of me and see it standing over me once again, except it doesn't say anything. It doesn't even move either, which it never did. Now it just makes it seem lifeless. It doesn't even feel like it's looking at me. I look behind me, below the ledge, and see the statues hanging on to tops and sides of nearby buildings. Even the one I'm on right now, it looks like they were climbing up to try and get me before I saw them. Many of them are still reaching out to me. All of a sudden, I hear the sound of scraping stone behind me once again, and as I turn around, stone cold hands grab me by the throat and starts lifting me above my feet. It's moving right in front of me.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Its voice asks me as it steps onto the ledge and holds me over it.
You hear that? Nothing. Silence. Stillness. It's perfect. And I'm glad I get to share it with you, Peter. And we'll have all of eternity to enjoy it.
Go to hell! I try to yell out as it holds me.
Everyone is so quiet, so calm, so peaceful, so still. Forever peaceful, forever immobile. This is how the world ends. This is how the world ends. Not with a cry, but a whisper. Not with a bang, but a whimper. We are the Stillmen. We are the Stone Men.
My body from the feet up slowly starts turning into stone, turning me into a statue. I don't want this! I cry out in desperation. The stone man pauses as it looks into my eyes, and it whispers to me one final time.
Then you shall crumble.
It lets go of my throat, and I begin to drop as more and more of my body is turned to stone. As I reach out my hand towards the dim sun above me, I accept my fate, and right before I hit the ground and crumple into a million pieces, while I still have the ability to think, I realize that after all, there is never any hope in a world filled with stone.